Hello everyone. How are you today? I hope you're doing fine. Meet me again with Miss Dinar Primasiwi, and in this meeting, we are going to learn about listening part A, skills 4, 5, and 6. So, what are we going to learn today? So today we're going to learn skill 4, 5 and 6 in listening comprehension. Skill 4 is about drawing the conclusions about who, what and where. Skill 5 is about listening for who, what and where in possessive sentences. And finally, skill 6 is about listening for who and what with multiple nouns. Okay guys, let's start from the first skill that we are going to learn today. Skill 4, drawing the conclusions about who, what, and where. In listening comprehension part A, it is common to ask you to draw some kind of conclusion. Here, the answer is not clearly stated. Instead, you must draw a conclusion based on the clues given in the conversation. Jadi di listening comprehension part A, pada bagian short conversation atau short dialogue, kadang kalian tidak menemukan jawaban dari dialog yang kalian dengar. That means you have to draw a conclusion. Maka yang harus kalian lakukan adalah kalian menarik kesimpulan dari clue atau petunjuk yang kalian dengar pada short dialogue tersebut. And the questions that we can have here is about who, what, and where. Let's start from who. When the question is about who, that means you have to determine who the speaker is. You have to find out what the occupation or what the job is. Jika pertanyaannya adalah who, maka kalian harus menentukan apa pekerjaan dari speaker tersebut. Nah, biasanya questionnya adalah who is the man atau who is the woman. Kalau pertanyaannya adalah who is the man, maka yang dimaksud di sini adalah apa pekerjaan dari laki-laki tersebut. And let's see the typical answers. The typical answers will be the noun, the name of job or occupations started with articles a or an. Jadi kalian bisa scanning dulu ya di textbook kalian. Jawabannya biasanya berupa kata benda, yaitu pekerjaan, dan biasanya dimulai dengan artikel a atau an. Misalnya a bank teller, a storyteller, a teacher, an architect, dan seterusnya. Next is what. If the question is about what, that means you have to determine what the speaker probably do next. It is about the activity that the speaker is going to do. And then the question will be, what will the speaker probably do next? Or what will the man probably do next? Or what will the woman probably do next? Apa yang akan dilakukan oleh speaker tersebut kemudian? Apa yang akan dilakukan oleh laki-laki tersebut kemudian? And the typical answers, of course, is the verb showing activities. Karena pertanyaannya adalah what ya, menanyakan aktivitas, maka jawabannya berupa kata kerja yang menunjukkan action or activity. Misalnya, go to the bank, drink some water, eat some food, and so on and so forth. Lastly is about where. If the question is where, so you have to determine where the conversation happens or where the conversation takes place. Jadi, kalian harus menentukan di mana kira-kira conversation tersebut terjadi. Jadi, yang ditanyakan adalah tentang place. Biasanya public places ya. Misalnya hospital, bank, laboratory, museum, and etc. And the question is, where does the conversation probably take place? Nah, and then the typical answers here is the name of places started with preposition. Jika kalian lihat di opsi jawabannya, biasanya opsi jawabannya diawali dengan preposition karena dia menunjukkan tempat. Misalnya in a bank, on the roof, at the library, and etc. Okay, now let's see the following example. On the recording you hear, I'd like to deposit this check in my account, please. Would you like any cash back? Who is the woman? On the textbook you read, a store clerk, a bank teller, an accountant, a waitress. Now let's see the tips. The first tip is determine the question. Here, the question is who, so that means it is asking about the job. Karena pertanyaannya diawali dengan who, berarti pasti menanyakan tentang pekerjaan. Next, see the answer. Nah, kalian bisa cek nih di opsi jawabannya. Opsi jawabannya merupakan kata benda dan dimulai dengan artikel a atau an. Ada a store clerk, a bank teller, an accountant, a waitress. Semuanya adalah noun yang berupa nama pekerjaan, kemudian di depannya berupa artikel a atau an. Nah, last tip is find the keyword or clues. Remember, the clues can be verb or noun. Ingat ya, yang merupakan keyword atau clues bisa berupa verb, kata kerja, atau noun, kata benda. Nah, the keyword that you have here is verb, deposit, and then noun, account, and cash. Nah, dari kata deposit, kemudian account, kemudian cash, you can conclude. Kalian bisa menyimpulkan nih, kira-kira perempuan tersebut memiliki pekerjaan apa ya? Nah, karena ada kata deposit, account, dan cash, maka jawaban yang benar adalah B, a bank teller. Now let's see the next example. On the recording you hear, have you deposited your paycheck yet? No, but that's next on my list of errands. What will the man probably do next? On the textbook you read, earn his paycheck. Write a check for a deposit on an apartment. Go to a bank. Make a list of errands to run. Now let's see the tips here. First, determine the question. Ingat, tips yang pertama adalah tentukan questionnya. Questionnya tentang apa sih? Nah, questionnya diawali dengan kata what, kemudian ada kata do juga ya. What will the man probably do next? Kalau pertanyaannya dimulai dengan what, berarti dia pasti menanyakan tentang aktivitas. Nah, see the answer. Kalian juga bisa ngecek dari opsi jawabannya ya. Opsi jawabannya dimulai dengan kata earn, kemudian write, ada kata go dan make. Semua diawali dengan kata kerja. Maka, jika opsi jawaban dimulai dengan kata kerja, yang ditanyakan pasti tentang aktivitas. And last tip, find the keyword or clues. Kita cari kata kuncinya. Ingat, kata kunci adalah verb atau noun. Nah, di sini kita lihat ada keyword deposited, kemudian ada keyword paycheck, kemudian ada kata next dan errand. Nah, pertanyaannya kan tentang apa yang akan dilakukan laki-laki tersebut kemudian ya. Nah, kira-kira jawabannya apa nih? Kalau ada kata kunci deposited, ada kata paycheck. Nah, kalau kata Deposit kemudian paycheck pasti ada hubungannya dengan bank ya. Nah, kemudian ada kata next, berarti sesuatu yang akan dilakukan kemudian. Berarti kira-kira laki-laki tersebut mau melakukan apa? Jawabannya adalah C. Go to a bank. Pergi ke bank untuk mendepositokan gaji atau paycheck-nya. Next. The last example. On the recording you hear, are you going into water or are you just going to lie there on the sand? I think I need to put some suntan lotion. Where does this conversation probably take place? On the textbook you read, at a beauty salon, at the beach, in a sandbox, at an outdoor restaurant. See the tips here. First, determine the question. Kita tentukan dulu pertanyaannya. Apa yang kalian dengar dari naratornya? Kalian dengar, where does this conversation probably take place? Ada kata where, berarti pasti menanyakan tempat. Kalian juga bisa ngecek nih dari option jawabannya. Option jawabannya diawali dengan preposition at dan in dan diikuti oleh noun yang berupa tempat. Berarti pasti pertanyaan ini menanyakan tempat di mana conversation tersebut terjadi. Kemudian last tip is find the keyword or clues. Kita cari kata kuncinya. Kata kuncinya bisa berupa verb atau noun. Nah, di sini kita bisa punya keyword, ada kata water, kemudian ada kata suntan lotion, ada juga ada kata sand. Kira-kira di mana ya tempat yang ada water, ada sand, dan tempat di mana kita bisa menggunakan suntan lotion atau sunblock? Kalian pasti tahu jawabannya adalah B, at the beach. It's easy, isn't it? Now let's continue to skill 5. Listen for who and what in passive sentences. Determining who is doing what in passive sentences is sometimes difficult. This problem is often tested in short dialogues in listening part A. Jadi di listening part A ada pertanyaan mengenai who and what in passive sentences. Kalian pasti sudah tahu ya bedanya active and passive sentence. Kita mulai dari active sentence. In active sentence, the subject performs the action shown by the verb. Jadi pada kalimat aktif, subjek yang melakukan sesuatu. Subjek melakukan aktivitas. For example, John kicked the ball. John is the actor or the subject, and John performs the action of kicked the ball. Jadi subjeknya John, dan John melakukan aktivitas yaitu kicked the ball. That's why the pattern that we have here is subject followed by verb. Next, what about the passive one? In passive, the subject is the noun receiving action from the actor. Subjeknya merupakan kata benda yang mendapatkan aksi atau dikenai aktivitas dari seorang aktor. For example, the ball was kicked by John. Here, the subject is the ball, but ball doesn't perform action. Bola di sini tidak melakukan aktivitas, tapi bola dikenai aktivitas oleh aktor yaitu John. So, that's why in bahasa Indonesia the translation will be bola ditendang oleh John, bukan bola menendang John, karena yang dikenai aktivitas adalah bolanya. Maka kalimatnya adalah bola ditendang oleh John. And the pattern for the passive here is subject followed by be and verb 3. Ingat-ingat kalau passive sentence pasti ada to be dan di belakangnya diikuti oleh verb 3. What about the question? For the question here we have what does the man or woman mean? Or what does the man and woman imply? Biasanya kalau menanyakan who and what in passive, pertanyaannya berupa what does the man or woman imply or what does the man or woman mean? Now continue to the tips. The tips are, number 1, check carefully who is doing the action. Jadi cek benar-benar nih siapa yang melakukan aktivitas, siapa aktornya. Kemudian, if the dialogue contains passive, the answer is often active. Kalau di dialog kalian mendengarkan kalimat pasif, maka cari jawaban yang berupa kalimat aktif. Kebalikannya nih, if the dialogue contains active, the answer is often passive. Kalau di dialog kalian mendengarkan kalimat aktif, maka cari jawaban yang berupa kalimat pasif. Now see the following example. On the recording you hear, did Sally go to the bank this morning? Yes, she did. She got a new checking account. What does the woman imply? On the textbook you read, she wrote several checks. Sally wanted to check up on the bank. A new checking account was opened. Sally checked on the balance in her account. Let's see the tips. Focus on the second speaker and determine the type of sentence, whether it is active or passive. Kita lihat di sini kalimat yang kedua adalah she got a new checking account. Ada subjek ditambah verb langsung ya. Ada subjek she atau Sally dan kemudian verbnya adalah got. So that's why the sentence is active. Remember, if the sentence is active in the dialogue, the answer is often passive. Ingat ya, kalau di dialog kalian dengar kalimatnya aktif, berarti jawabannya pasti berupa kalimat pasif. Kalimat pasif patternnya adalah subjek diikuti be dan verb 3. Coba cari antara A, B, C, dan D, mana nih yang kalimat pasif? Yes, the answer is C. A new checking account was opened. It's easy, isn't it? And finally, we come to the last skill for today's session, skill C, listening for who and what with multiple nouns. In part A, it is common to have an expression with more than one noun. In this type of question, you need to pay extra attention on who is doing what. Jadi di part A, kita juga bisa menemukan kalimat atau expression yang mengandung lebih dari satu kata benda atau lebih dari satu aktor ya. Dan untuk menaklukkan pertanyaan jenis ini, kalian harus ekstra fokus pada who is doing what. Siapa melakukan apa. Nah, biasanya questionnya berupa kalimat ini. What does the man or woman mean? What does the man or woman imply? What does the woman say about blah blah blah? What happened to blah blah blah? And what happened to blah 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 according to the woman or the man? Nah, tips here, again, focus on who is doing what. Tipsnya adalah fokus pada siapa melakukan apa. Now see the example. On the recording you hear, why is Paul going back this summer? He's returning to Vermont for his sister's wedding. What does the woman mean? On the textbook you read, Paul is getting married this summer. Paul's sister is returning from Vermont to get married. Paul will be there when his sister gets married this summer. Paul's sister is coming to his wedding in Vermont. Now let's see the tips. Focus on the second speaker with multiple nouns. Here, the second speaker says he's returning to Vermont for his sister's wedding. Jadi speaker yang kedua, kita cek ada 2 noun ya, itu he atau Paul and his sister. Now focus on who is doing what. Fokus pada siapa yang melakukan apa. First, he's returning to Vermont for his sister's wedding. Ada he atau Paul ya. Apa yang Paul lakukan? He's returning. Kemudian ada juga his sister's wedding. Berarti siapa yang menikah? Atau apakah Paul atau his sister? Ya, his sister. His sister gets married. So, the option here is C, which will be the best one ya. Jadi opsi jawaban yang terbaik adalah yang C, karena A, Paul is getting married, salah. Yang married adalah sisternya. Paul's sister is returning from Vermont, salah, karena yang kembali ke Vermont adalah Paul. Kemudian Paul's sister is coming to his wedding in Vermont, salah ya, bukan Paul's sister yang datang ke pernikahannya Paul, tapi Paul yang datang ke pernikahan adik atau saudarinya. So that's why the answer is C. Well, I guess that's all for today's session. We have learned skill 4, 5, and 6 in listening comprehension part A. I'll see you next time with the next listening skills. See you!